Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our very first Getting Personal with Parkinson's Facebook Live event. My name is Caroline Colas, and I'm the Senior Director of Health and Wellness for the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan, and the Program Coordinator for the Edmund J. Safra Parkinson's Wellness Program here at the JCC. For over 12 years, the JCC has been hosting programs for those living with Parkinson's. You can find these programs on our website at www.mmjccm.org/Parkinson's. They're open to everyone. I'm delighted to be launching this program with you live on Facebook today. Starting April 5th, this will actually be a weekly series that you can find right here on the JCC's Facebook page. Remember, you don't have to be a Facebook participant or have a Facebook page to join us. Our desire with this conversation is to make this personal, to put a face on Parkinson's, to introduce you to people living with PD who will share strategies and resources that have helped them thrive, as well as hear from some experts who will talk about updates in research, and maybe, if we're lucky, we'll even have a celebrity or two who will entertain us. This program is for you, anyone whose life has been impacted by Parkinson's, including those who have been diagnosed, as well as family and friends. We welcome your input and your ideas. We want to create this show together with you. So let us know if you want to be a guest, or if you have someone you would like to feature, or even a topic that is of interest to you. All inquiries can be directed to Whitney Chapman at wchapman@mmjccm.org. And I believe that will be in the Facebook stream, so you can just look that up. And now I'm excited to introduce you to my friend, Miriam Bram, Ambassador to the World Parkinson's Congress, also known as WPC, to learn about her life with Parkinson's and how the WPC has informed and inspired her journey. Miriam's going to share with us her experiences about PD, how it's impacted her family, and the strategies and tips that she has used, including traveling solo to Kyoto, Japan, to attend the last WPC. So Miriam and I had a chat that we pre-recorded, which I want to share with you now, and we'll be meeting you afterwards for a Q&A. So if you have questions as you listen to our conversation, just put them in the chat and we'll happily answer them. I think I'm just going to have Miriam come on and say hi so everyone can see you and say hello. So Miriam, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm very excited to be launching the Getting Personal with Parkinson's series. And I hope that I can answer any questions and be some inspiration. Happy to be here, Caroline.
Awesome. So Matt, why don't we go ahead and show the clip, and then we'll come back and answer anybody's questions.
Fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about you? It occurs to me that I don't have your bio on hand.
Sure. I live in Manhattan on the Upper West Side with my husband and 2 teenage daughters. I spent 15 years in my career in public relations and then earned a degree in holistic health counseling. And then when I turned 44, I noticed a small tremor in my left hand. And I went to the neurologist and found out I was being diagnosed with Parkinson's, which came as quite a surprise.
I'll bet.
That was 12 years ago.
What was it like telling your family about that?
Well, first I had to tell myself. I was in denial for a little bit. It was hard thing to accept. And then of course, I told my husband right from the doctor's office. I said to the doctor, you have to call my husband so I could share it and not have it all the weight on me. But we made a decision to tell. The kids were only 5 and 3 at the time. And we made a decision to tell them in very simple terms. So since they couldn't really grasp it, but the main point that I told them was they have medication and I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
But as they've gotten older, they've taken on more, knowledge, and they're very compassionate.
Yeah, I was talking recently with one of our presenters, and she has 4 children, and her husband has Parkinson's, and she says that her kids have really grown up to be quite empathetic human beings as a result of having a parent that's living with Parkinson's. Have you found that to be true?
Yeah, I
of
think
your
it's a silver lining when you have adversity or things that you can't take for granted. You learn to be compassionate and empathetic. They help me a lot. They see that, when I have trouble walking, they kind of take a hold of my arm. And I think it has them appreciating the things that they normally would take for granted.
That's beautiful. Your husband, is he a filmmaker, did you say? Because I know
He-
you've been in one of his films.
Yes, he made a documentary on his own spiritual journey, studying Kabbalah. And I think he's thinking about a second one to follow up in the not too distant future. But I think it came out in 2012. And yes, I co-starred. And that was right at the beginning of when I was first diagnosed, the first 4 years.
Yeah. What would you say, like what 3 things would you say to someone who's recently been diagnosed with Parkinson's?
I would say don't be afraid to talk about it with your loved ones. Find a good neurologist who you can have a good relationship with, and exercise. And I would add a fourth, which would be to don't be afraid to find community, even just one person that you can share things that nobody else can understand and kind of find some support around.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons for this series. We wanted to have the ability for people to not only share what their experiences are with finding out that they have Parkinson's, but also all the wonderful things they're doing with their life, and then to share, some insight and potentially some tips on how to manage living with Parkinson's. And I know you because we danced together, and
Yeah.
you've come to my dance class
For 10 years.
Yeah, I know. And you're so vibrant. And I remember when we were both talking about going to the World Parkinson's Congress.
Yeah.
And I was so disappointed that I wasn't able to go to Japan this last time. I went to 2 previous World Parkinson's Congresses, one in Portland and one in Montreal. And I thought you were so adventurous to go to Japan. Can you tell everybody what the World Parkinson Congress is and what motivated you? Was that your first one, or was that
was my second one? I went to Portland.
That's right.
I think we ran into each other for a minute. Yeah, that was my first one. And it was definitely eye-opening because there was so much offering there to learn about from other people with Parkinson's, from scientists, from clinicians, and there were exercise programs. I mean, it was like endless. And it showed me what an amazing community of people there were out there, not only that have Parkinson's, but the science community is so actively working to find a cure, and bringing all those constituents together makes it really powerful to see that everybody working together to find the cure and communicating.
I agree. And I loved that, at the end of the sessions, they'd have an open mic for questions, and that anyone could ask these world renowned, experts about their questions, and they're so receptive, especially to people that were living with Parkinson's. I thought that was my experience. Hear from people that were living with the disease and how it was for them, and answer their questions.
Right. It's the equalizer. It kind of levels the playing field in that room to see Nobel Prize winning scientists talking with people that have the disease. And it's just like both sides can learn from each other.
I was thinking the same thing. And we know that from neuroplasticity in the brain, right? That even you and I having this conversation, we're going to be different having been together in this moment. And so here you have these, as you said, these Nobel Prize winners talking with people living with Parkinson's, and they're getting a chance to experience one another and hear from one another, and hear from people living with Parkinson's what's important and what they're really concerned about.
Right.
And vice versa. So
it can really help to get feedback from people with Parkinson's when you're thinking about clinical trials and research. And I know Michael J. Fox Foundation has something on their website where you really put in a lot of detail about your everyday life, and they just use it to get anecdotal evidence about all the things people with Parkinson's experience. But the World Parkinson's Congress was founded on the notion of everybody shouldn't be in their own silos, and we should all be cross-pollinating to get ideas between each other and among the community, so that
You
we
have a
all.
little presentation. Do you want to
Sure,
put up your slides so that we can kind of talk, and then promise me you'll tell me about Japan
I
and what that
will.
was like for you.
I will. I'd love to. Feels like a long time ago that we were traveling.
Right.
It's a reality. Okay. Yeah. So one of the things, so I was saying that Portland was my first experience at the WPC. And then I was so excited by it that I decided it was a perfect excuse to travel to Kyoto for. And I had a great experience there. One of the things that was so amazing was they have this buddy program where you put in a detailed form about who you are, what your interests are, lifestyle-wise, your profession, your age. Do you have a pet? You know, what exercise do you like to do? And then they match you with somebody who seems like similar in all those, at least some of those areas. And I was put together with this lovely woman named Megumi from Tokyo who has Parkinson's, and she's my age exactly. And she has one daughter, and we spent the whole conference going to talks together and having lunch together. And she came to visit me in New York with her family. And it was the greatest thing. We do yoga together, virtual yoga, like every once a month. And that was like a great gift.
Wow.
To be there for each other and like have that relationship you would never have had. So that's a beautiful thing that they do. But more specifically, the conference has so many opportunities to learn scientifically, listening to other people with Parkinson's, how they live well and have a balanced life, and things that they do that really help them, whether it's exercise or support groups, or, you know, and really anything. But the World Parkinson's Congress, as I said, was founded to create a forum for people to like for scientists to discuss the latest research and discoveries, for clinicians to discuss what the best treatments have been and the latest treatments are, for people with Parkinson's to discuss their advocacy work, and all really with the goal of expediting a cure for the disease and get closer to it anyway. They've had 5 congresses so far, and the 6th one is going to be in Barcelona in June of 2022. So we're hoping with any luck that at the moment it's on, and they're going to decide by the end of the summer whether they can actually make it happen. But in the meantime, they have a virtual conference coming up in May, which I'll discuss a little later in the presentation.
Which is so great. It's so great that they're able to do more virtually, because I feel like then more people get access to the information.
Right. Well, what they're doing, I guess I'll tell you about it now. From May 17th to the 21st, they have the virtual Congress, and it's $25. You register, I think, starting April 1st. And there's many tracks and many hours of presentations that you can choose from and watch on your own time. And then the next day you can put in questions, and the next day they do a Q&A virtually. So there's a sense of interaction. And if you want to know more about something, you can. There's also,
so it'll be May 17th through the 21st, and then we start registering April 1st, which is National Parkinson's Month, right? In April.
April, yeah. Great. And I think April 11th is Parkinson's Awareness Day. So there's a lot going on in April. There's the Unity Walk in Central Park, which we've done together.
Yes, we have. And, you know, the JCC is going to be doing a virtual kind of fun event called Broadway's Best for Parkinson's. So
Oh, really?
yeah, save the date for that. That'll be coming up, where we're going to feature some performers and people living with Parkinson's, and just kind of have fun. Because I don't know about you, but I miss Broadway.
Yeah, for sure. I miss
So,
everything.
yeah, me too. And so singing is a large part of staying well with Parkinson's too. You know, I love the World Parkinson Congress because it's really, Parkinson's is known as the snowflake disease. It affects everyone so
Yes.
differently. And that way we can have the opportunity, when you go to WPC and you meet other people, you can hear like, well, what about this? And what about that? And, you know, like, it affects me this way. And somebody else can say, well, you know, it really affects my voice. And somebody else can say it affects my left side. And somebody else can say it affects my feet. So to have the opportunity to talk with one another and get tips and be with, as you said, exercise. I've taught exercise at the WPC, the NIA body and brain exercise program that I do for our program. And it's been wonderful to meet, even for me to meet other instructors that teach people living with Parkinson's and learn from them, as well as meet other people from all over the world, you know, living with Parkinson's.
Well, it was great to be in Kyoto because there were people from everywhere, from Australia, from Japan, of course, from Europe, from the United States, although a little bit less so. It was more Europe and Australia, but it was wonderful to like have that interaction. And
how was it getting around Kyoto for you?
It was pretty good. I mean, I did what I could. I mean, the days were long at the conference, so there wasn't a lot of time, but I got around pretty well. And actually, I did a hiking trip the whole week after. I tacked it on at the end with a group called Backroads. And I had my walking sticks. That helped me get around.
Yeah.
And it was really exciting because I figured if I was going all the way out there, I wanted to see more than just the convention center at Kyoto. But Kyoto is a very quaint, ancient town compared to Tokyo, which is more modern.
Yeah, and I remember you being a little concerned about going and traveling. Now, did you go by yourself?
I went by myself. And, you know, when you do things like that, it feels very empowering. And it wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, I did it. I just kind of got my head around it. Mind over matter.
Right. I was a little nervous about going. And then, yes, I was a little nervous about going. It turned out I couldn't go because of work commitments and stuff. And then when I thought, I was so impressed and motivated by your bravery.
Thank you.
Right. Right. I really was. And I remember us talking about it. And I remember you, when you came back, it was like, yeah.
It was very empowering and very fun to travel and feel that freedom and independence.
Yeah.
So it's good to not define yourself.
Yeah. Right. Was that the first time you had traveled by yourself in a while to like a far place?
Yeah. I used to do it in my early days, single days, but yeah, that was the first time I'd gone away by myself to overseas.
Right. And are you going to Barcelona?
I am definitely going to Barcelona. And I plan on taking a vacation after that conference too.
Oh, nice.
But
I hope I get to join you in Barcelona.
I hope so.
Was there a few more slides that you wanted to show us? Let's just see if you had.
Yeah.
Or was that it? Yeah. Okay. Let's pop those back up.
Okay. Let's see. I talked a little bit about how the Congress was formed, but the program there's about 60 experts who pick the programming based on what's most relevant to the audience. And they, as I said, they have the scientists, the clinicians, and the people with Parkinson's all presenting, and they're kind of divided into high, medium, and low as far as what your knowledge needs to be. But things are pretty accessible to most people. But they really take their time to figure out what the best programming should be.
And I liked that. I liked that if I didn't want anything that was too scientific, right, I could gauge that by the icons, right? And if I really wanted to go for it and I wanted to go really deep into the science, I had that opportunity to do so as well.
Yeah, there are a lot of tracks you can take. Next slide.
Mhm.
Is this the next slide? Oh, yeah. It's the World Parkinson Coalition runs the congresses, and they also do a lot of other virtual programming, like what we were just talking about, the virtual Parkinson's event, the virtual Congress in May. But they're an independent nonprofit. They were created in 2004 and really were created, as I said, to be the one forum that brings all the community together.
Talk to us about the video, the date for the video. What is it called? Can you go back 2 slides? The video competition. Yes,
Oh,
because
that's later on.
yes,
Here,
but there's all of these. Remember the quilts? Did they have the quilts in Kyoto? And also they have.
I remember the quilts. I don't think they had them there, but they have an opportunity for people to do 2 things: an abstract, which becomes a poster, which can be like a one poster. It looks like a 1 slide PowerPoint where you have graphics and text describing either something research oriented or some event that you did that had a big impact on the community. And other people can do videos of anything and you get voted on. You apply, you submit them, and then there's a certain number of winners that get to show their videos at the conference. And that can be people with Parkinson's, in addition to physical therapists or doctors. So it really runs the gamut. So if you're interested in making a video about something you've done that you feel has really helped, that's a great way to do it.
Yeah, I know Pam Quinn has made a video and won once, actually.
She
Pam
did?
Yeah, she's in she teaches in our program PD now, or PD Moves.
Right.
And yeah, she did a dance video. It was quite beautiful.
That's awesome.
I think she won 1 year.
That's fantastic.
She was one of the finalists. Yeah.
That's great.
The creativity is incredible at the conference, right?
It's amazing what people can do.
Yeah.
Even though you have Parkinson's, you can paint, you can write. I started writing 5 years ago, and I've really found my voice through that art. And it's been really rewarding because it's also a healing tool to write. And I've been writing some poetry and taking class. I'm taking a class at the JCC right now with my teacher. It's called The Write Prescription, WRITE. It's all about writing about your challenges, your illnesses, whatever you want to write about. But that's kind of it's like narrative healing, telling your story in different ways.
Gorgeous. And it's so funny. We know from positive psychology that the narrative that we tell ourselves actually influences sort of how we feel in the moment.
And what we attract.
Mm-hmm. So I'm so glad that you're finding that helpful. And thank you. I think that we can put some of these things in the Q&A so that people can, or in the Facebook line, so people can access them. We've talked about certainly the WPC, and we've also talked about and how to register for that. And we've talked about the writing course. I think we should do that. And then we've talked about, Pam's class and my class, and there's a whole bunch of things that people can do. And I love that you take yoga with your buddy.
Yeah, it's and they take it at midnight Japan time, which I think is so cute. Dedication.
Yeah. Dedication for sure.
But I wanted to mention, just so people know, that if they look at the World Parkinson's Coalition site, in addition to the virtual Congress coming up, they have Care Partner virtual series. The Care Partners, they do this at the conference. But since the conference is only every 3 years, in between the conferences, they offer a Care Partner series. And they call it the Care Partner Lounge. And the next one is coming up June 22nd it's called Emotional Roller Coaster.
Beautiful.
And they also do a dual language webinar first in English, then in Spanish, and they do about 4 of those a year. The next one is in May, talking about levodopa. And the last thing I wanted to mention was the research spotlight, whereby scientists and researchers who presented at a past WPC update some on the research they're doing. And the next talk is March 23rd, coming up soon, on COVID and PD, which I think would be very interesting for people to hear. And there's a sing-along. You mentioned singing and music. They do a monthly international Zoom gathering, sing-along, with hundreds of people online. So it's really fun. So they do things to reach out to people throughout the year, which is great to know about, just if you're looking for some inspiration or connection.
Yeah. I don't know if you know that we started a program with Bill Connington, which is an Alexander technique. He's an Alexander teacher that started our program. And he's been working with the Yale Drama School that's why he left our program. But again, silver lining of COVID. I said, Bill, can you teach on Zoom? And he said, sure. And then Heather, who works for, Sing for PD, they came together and she had some shoulder injuries, and she found Alexander really helped her as a singer. And then we know that there's actually been a research study about Alexander and Parkinson's, and we know that that can be really helpful. So we brought those two together, and we've been playing with that. And that's on Wednesdays at 2:30.
The Alexander techniques has always intrigued me. I'll have to try that.
Oh yeah, you can. I'll put it in the chat so people can look at that. And the thing I was going to ask you about is we really want to make sure that, and what I think the WPC does so well is it sort of really helps with isolation, doesn't it? I mean, when you traveled all that way, when you got your buddy, it was like, wait a second, I'm not alone in this.
Yeah, that was really exciting for me because I have been a little on my own in this, and I try to work my Parkinson's body into the regular world. And sometimes it works very well, like in your NIAB class. But sometimes it's nice to have somebody to share it with and to learn other things from. I just joined a support group called Parkinsons Anonymous, and they had a movement disorder specialist talk about sleep. And it was just nice. At the end, there was a Q&A and everybody was asking intelligent questions. And there is something really important about not being isolated. And it's very easy to isolate when you have Parkinson's because it's just easier not to get out and put yourself out there. And a lot of people at the beginning have some shame around it or fears around it. They don't want to identify with it. But I think it's so helpful to have somebody who also has Parkinson's to learn from each other.
Beautiful. And I know that regardless of what health condition we might have, some people, when they first hear this, I know I'm like this, when I get a scan or when it seems like it's difficult news, I tend to blame myself at first.
Yeah.
Right? What did I do? Did I not eat right? Or did I not sleep enough? Or, what, as if we had control over that, right? And the truth of the matter is that health is multifactorial, right? Yeah. It's just, there's not something that, we know there are some causes, right, to Parkinson's, certainly pesticides and certain exposures to different things, but in general, it's no one's fault that they got Parkinson's, right? It's like, it happened, and then the question is, what do we do next?
Right. We can't control what comes our way, but we can control how we respond and deal with it and move with it in the flow. Sounds easy.
Yeah, it sounds easy, but boy, is it not.
Yeah.
It really takes presence of mind. Do you find meditation or yoga or anything like that to help?
I do yoga 3 times a week, and my practice has really gotten stronger, and I rely on it for grounding and breath work and a sense of peace and connection to my body and my mind. So I love yoga. It's also very good for, one of the most important things is to reach out and expand because your movements get smaller. And so it's very good for like elongating and being connected, using your breath to connect to your ability to move.
Beautiful. I know your sister's a yogi too.
Yes, she is. Meditation is great. I'm not the most disciplined at it, but I do some in the yoga class and I dabble in it. But it's also very good calming of the nervous system.
How do you use music? Do you find music helpful, either to change your mood or the cadence of it to help with your gait?
You know, it's interesting. I was just thinking today how I don't listen to enough music and I miss it because it can really impact you in a deep place emotionally. It's like can bring out so many triggers, so many emotions, but you like make you feel, whether it's upbeat or intense or whatever. It does help with walking. The rhythm and the cadence of it are good. I don't walk with my headset because I like to hear what's around me.
Yeah.
But at home, I could do more of that. But they've done studies on the benefits of music.
Yeah.
So
I had an opportunity to interview Kelly McGonigal, who's a researcher. She recently wrote a book, I guess in January 2020, about the joy of movement. And she said that you can use music, like you can have a healing song when you're feeling kind of down and you want to just like, you can't you're wrestling with the life's questions, right? That there can be a song that you have or a playlist that you have that it deals with that and helps you just feel what you need to feel. And then there's a whole other playlist that you can have that helps you get up and is motivating and it makes you feel like, yeah, I can go to Kyoto by myself.
I love that. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I think in mood driven playlists, it's a great idea.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the other thing that I do to keep me like positive, I think staying positive is really important. Sometimes we all need a little help in that area because you think about the long-term effects and it can get you a little nervous, but I try to stay in the moment. But I write down gratitude, one thing I'm grateful for every morning. I know we've talked about that.
Yeah.
And it really can set the tone for your day. So I have a spiritual path that I follow, and it includes writing acknowledging something different every day that I'm grateful for.
I think that's beautiful. And I find that my day is very different when I remember to do my gratitude practice. And I've actually heard, I interviewed a therapist who I was telling you about that has 4 kids.
Yes.
And her husband has Parkinson's. And she said, I cannot tell you or underestimate the power of a gratitude practice when you're living with something like Parkinson's or caring for someone with Parkinson's. And speaking of caregivers and care partners,
yes,
do you have any advice for people that are, caring for people that, or have people in their life that they love that are either newly diagnosed or?
Yeah, my husband's been a great care partner. He's very supportive and he always encourages me when he sees that I'm maybe not believing in myself. But I think they need to take time for self-care. I would advise them not minimizing the impact that it has on them, because they're not only living their life and taking care of their responsibilities, but they're sort of compensating for you and feeling emotions, and it's hard for them too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they need to take self-care.
They do, right? We all need to, we all need to be reminded to slow down a bit and take care of ourselves. And especially during COVID, right? It's been an anxious time for us, for everybody, and the brain doesn't love uncertainty like that. So I'm wondering, just one final question. What has PD taught you?
That's a good question. Well, it's taught me that you can't take anything for granted and that you don't know what's coming tomorrow. So I would say, do what you love and what gives you energy and what makes you happy. and do it now.
Thank you
Don't
so
put it
much for
off.
thank you so much for spending time with us
Thank you for having me.
today.
It was a pleasure
You're so
talking to
welcome.
you.
You're so welcome. And until we can hug again,
Oh,
you be safe and be well.
virtual hug.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Miriam.
Thank you.
So that was our interview, and I know that there's some questions, and Miriam's going to pop back on. There she is. Oh, it was really fun revisiting that.
It really was. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it as much as doing it.
Yeah. I was struck by several of the things that you were talking about in our interview. I loved that you said, I work my PD body into the real world.
Yeah, that was a good line. I didn't even remember I said that. But yeah, I try to be in the real world as much as possible without defining myself by Parkinson's. And being in your class was a wonderful thing, and everybody really appreciated that I could be there and was very supportive. And it was very positive for me.
Yeah. And then I love Shakers Anonymous. I think Whitney might have put that in the Q&A or the chat or the Facebook Live. I'm not sure what you call it, but I think that's a great, first of all, it's a great organization, it sounds like, and it's also a great title because you can remember that, right?
Yeah.
And then you talked about yoga being grounding and a place for you to be peaceful and using the breath to reach out and expand.
Yeah, it's so important because when you have Parkinson's, you don't realize that your movements are getting smaller. You feel like you're making big movement, but you're really not. And the more you can train your brain with neuroplasticity by moving extra wide with your arms and taking bigger steps, the more you practice that, the more it becomes a part of your brain, kind of adjusts, and a different part of your brain remembers that movement. It's really, it enables you to keep your body working better instead of giving into the smallness.
Right. I know that repetition is a dancer's best friend.
Yeah.
They do it over and over again. There's a rhythm that is found. There's a security. There's a, as you said, the breath, just finding the breath. And speaking of dancers, we happen to have Pam Quinn on listening in, and she asked a question, and she said she says, I'm an old young onset.
I feel like one too.
And I'm curious, in talking with other people with Parkinson's about what they would do differently if they had to do it all over again. How would you answer that question, Miriam?
The first thing that comes to my mind is I would travel. I would do all the things on my wish list, my bucket list, and I would make them happen while I was in the early years of Parkinson's. And I would figure out what my goals are, what are the things that I want to accomplish. But not so much for racing the clock, but to make sure you do the things you want to do, because you never know what tomorrow brings. And I would also reach out to community earlier than I did and not feel the concern about over-identifying with being somebody with Parkinson's, but more embracing the community and embracing others that are in a similar situation and phase of life. Because there's nothing like having a friend who understands exactly what you're going through. And it's just a nice camaraderie, and you can learn from each other.
So did you mean by that you hesitated?
Yes, I did. I think I had, as I mentioned in our interview, definitely had a certain amount of shame around it and unwillingness to accept it, because I was 44, and to me it was an old person's disease, and it also shook me a little to the core when you hear degenerative neuro disease. But what I realized is that as a young person, the progression moves slowly, and you can really do so much, and it makes you appreciate everything so much more. And I would probably move forward with more pride and not so much fear. But those are normal emotions too. I don't want to discount that.
Completely. I want to go back to the idea of traveling alone to the
Okay.
World Parkinson's Congress. You were nervous because you were traveling alone, or were you nervous because you were concerned, had some concerns, related to managing your PD, or was it both?
It was both, but I would say the primary fear was the fear of my gait and the on-off syndrome, where the medicine has you on and walking well, for example, and then all of a sudden, unpredictably, your gait becomes more difficult. In my case, that's my biggest challenge. So I think I was in a minor way a little afraid of traveling alone, but not really to Japan. It's not a third world country. It runs like clockwork. I didn't have that much fear of being alone, as much as fear of adjusting, getting my body to work the way it needs to work, and being able to relax and enjoy the experience. But I
And
was
then
able to manage it.
I was just wondering if you had sort of planned out what you would do in the event if you had your medication wore off, or if you found yourself freezing, or did you think about it ahead of time? Was that helpful?
Um, I didn't think too much about it. I just made the assumption that it would work out. But I knew that when I was at the conference, that there would be so much support around that. And I knew that I would be in good hands. I would have a place to rest. I gave myself the option to go move slowly and not overplan. And that was very helpful. I didn't have too much expectation, and I allowed myself to take a break when necessary.
And I think that's a great strategy, right? It's sometimes when we have expectations that I have to be a certain way, or I have to move a certain way, or I have to move at a certain pace,
Right.
um, that we can get into a little bit of trouble. If someone has never been to the WPC, why would you encourage them to go? And is financial
Well,
support available if someone is in need?
yes. Yeah, there's a limited number of grants, travel grants and stipends available to people with Parkinson's, researchers, clinicians. And there's a time period where you can apply for that starting in October through early December. And this year there was a fundraising on Facebook. A number of us raised money for people with young onset Parkinson's, because they're kind of the future of Parkinson's. And there's a lot of programming oriented toward people who are young, like in their 40s, when they are younger, when they get Parkinson's. And the reason I would recommend it is because it's just such a positive influence to go to these conferences. You see how many people are working so diligently toward the research, toward finding a cure. It's very hopeful. It's an opportunity to make connections with people and to learn what the treatment options are and what people are doing to live their best with Parkinson's. And I mentioned the buddy program, and I have this new friend who lives in Tokyo, Megumi, who I met at the conference, and we do yoga together virtually. She and her family came to New York after the conference a few months later, and then we hosted them for dinner, and we went touring around the city together. They showed me around Tokyo, and it's a beautiful friendship, and it's very special. So I encourage people to go and join the buddy program, because you meet people from all over the world and you don't feel alone. Gets you out of the isolation. And one other point I'll make about it is it's an opportunity to hear what people with Parkinson's are doing as from an advocacy standpoint, because there's so much going on in that arena, and it makes you feel empowered to be getting the Parkinson's voice out there.
It's amazing to travel in general, and then
Yeah,
also to meet people from all over the world. Every country treats Parkinson's slightly different, right? And
right.
so to learn about that, I found, wow, look at what they're doing in Holland. Wow, look at what they're doing in Japan. And it just opened my eyes a lot.
Me too, and I feel very fortunate that I live in a country that has the resources where I can see a movement disorder specialist. I can get the medicine that I need. For instance, in Africa, one of our ambassadors started found a nonprofit called Parkinsons Africa to raise awareness and raise funds to provide more knowledge and medication to people in that country and resources. So so there are many countries that don't have the financial backing and the resources and the education around Parkinson's. Parkinson's is the fastest neurological disease, fastest growing, neurological disease out there.
Yeah, and Stop Parkinson's Now.
Ending Parkinson's.
Or Ending Parkinson's Now, right?
Yeah.
They've called it a pandemic.
Yes, they have. And they're right on the money on that. There was just a campaign that they started to send red letters, like based on the March of Dimes, and it's called I Give a Dime About Parkinson's. And we've sent 10,000 letters, I believe, have been sent to the White House. So that's the kind of advocacy work that can really make an impact. And I believe if you go to their website, endingpd.com, you can still order letters or postcards to send.
Wow. Miriam, thank you so much for sharing your lunchtime with me and for all the wonderful resources that you've shared with us today. Any last, I want to give you an opportunity to just have a last minute thoughts?
I guess I would say that having a chronic, you can live with Parkinson's for a long time, and living with a chronic disease isn't really easy, but it can open up a lot of doors and a lot of new creativity and paths and meeting phenomenal people. So there's a lot of silver linings that come along with it, and try to look for those and do your best and to make it as positive as it can be.
Well, you certainly are an inspiration. You always have been.
Thank you.
Friend and as a student that comes. I always learn from my students, so I always feel like that's a mutual relationship.
Well, thank you for everything that you do at the JCC as well, because that's a beautiful and such a helpful local resource, community resource, and your offerings are really vast and needed in the Parkinson's community.
Thank you. I wanted to let everyone know that Miriam participates in a number of our programs here at the J, and some are specifically geared towards individuals living with Parkinson's and some aren't, right? We offer 8 movement fitness classes a week in a variety of disciplines, and we'll put the link in the Facebook Live feed so you can see that. And if I may brag, our team was the first fitness professionals invited to the National Parkinson's Foundation's Allied Team and Training Program over 12 years ago. And each instructor is an expert in their field, not only in their discipline, but also with Parkinson's. They created the programs, and at that time, there weren't programs. Like we created a program called Parkinson's Yoga for PD, and that was created by Whitney Chapman, and a lot of our instructors created the programs that we now see today 12 years ago. And they're an amazing team of humans and of professionals, and so I invite everyone to please check it out, and remember that this conversation today that we're having, this series, is for you. So please let us know if you're interested in learning, what you're interested in learning about, what you want us to share. If you want to come on the show, if you have questions, email Whitney Chapman, wchapman@mmjccm. We want to be having the conversations that you want to have on this show. So thanks everyone for joining us today. A special thank you to Miriam Bram.
And thank you so much.
You on Monday, April 5th. Happy Passover for those of you that celebrate. Happy Easter for those of you that celebrate that. And take care, Miriam. Big hug.
Take care, Caroline.
Big kiss.
Great to see you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.